CEO, he discovered his black maid's daughter solving a billion-dollar issue in mere moments. What he did afterward left the entire company stunned. Inside Technova's conference room, a tense, almost funereal silence hung in the air as dozens of engineers stared at the display in shock. The system, which had swallowed over $1 billion and consumed 3 years of development, had been completely stalled for 48 hours, racking up colossal financial losses by the minute. Does anyone have the slightest clue how to fix this? Bellowed James Mitchell, the CEO, slamming his palm onto the glass tabletop. We have Silicon Valley's top experts in this room, and nobody can figure this out. Seated quietly at the edge of the room, almost hidden among empty chairs, was 22-year-old Kesha Washington. She was the daughter of Dolores, the cleaning woman, who had scrubbed those offices for 15 years. Kesha was only present because her mother had asked her to drop off some forgotten papers. But she ended up witnessing the most intense crisis meeting in the firm's history. As the executives pointed fingers and senior engineers stumbled through tangled technical jargon, Kesha silently studied the strings of code scrolling on the screen. Her eyes darted rapidly, scanning each line with razor-sharp precision that no one around her could have anticipated. Within seconds, she spotted the culprit, a small syntax error that looked insignificant, yet was creating an endless loop in the security protocol. Excuse me. Kesha spoke up softly, timidly raising her hand. All eyes snapped toward her as if a ghost had just spoken. Victoria Sterling, a haughty director of technology, shot her a withering glare. Excuse me? And who exactly are you? This meeting is for authorized personnel only, Victoria said, her voice dripping with barely concealed disdain. I'm Kesha. My mom works here. I just came to drop off some documents. But Kesha hesitated, feeling the oppressive weight of all the skeptical stares fixed on her. I think I know what's wrong with the code. A ripple of quiet laughter and murmured comments passed through the room. The CFO, Robert Hayes, rolled his eyes with exaggerated annoyance. Young lady, this isn't a comedy routine. We're talking about a system that costs more than the GDP of some nations. You don't need guesses from someone who clearly doesn't understand programming. Despite the scathing words, Kesha didn't back down. There was a certain calmness in her eyes, as though she'd endured far worse indignities and built an invisible shield against them. I get that it sounds unlikely, she answered coolly. But there's an error in line 347 of the authentication module. There's a comma where there should be a semicolon. The silence that followed felt deafening. Mitchell furrowed his brow and moved closer to the display. The engineers hurried to inspect the specific line she'd mentioned. My God, murmured lead developer David Chen. She's right. How the hell did she see that? Barely 2 minutes after applying Kesha's fix, the system was running flawlessly again. $1 billion crisis averted thanks to a 30-second insight from someone everyone assumed couldn't even operate a computer. The CEO stared at Kesha with an unreadable expression, while Victoria Sterling and Robert Hayes traded uneasy glances, clearly infuriated at having been outshone by someone they saw as beneath them. But as the room tried to process what had just happened, no one noticed the small, fleeting smile that crossed Kesha's lips, a smile, suggesting that this wasn't the first time she'd surprised people who underestimated her. There was something about her serene focus, her sharp precision, and her quiet confidence that simply didn't align with the stereotype of the cleaning lady's daughter that everyone had so quickly assumed. If you're enjoying this story of overcoming obstacles and bias, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what unfolded in the days that followed would reveal secrets about Kesha Washington that would completely upend the balance of power in that arrogant company in the aftermath of the incident. The atmosphere at Technova shifted dramatically. Word spread like wildfire through the halls that a young black woman, the daughter of the cleaning lady, had solved a crisis that had crippled the company for 2 days. She'd done it in mere seconds. Yet rather than being met with admiration, Kesha found herself facing something far more sinister. The very next morning, Victoria Sterling called an emergency meeting with her immediate team. Seated in her plush Italian leather chair, framed by Stanford and MIT diplomas on the wall behind her, Victoria spoke with icy venom in her voice. You people actually believe that a girl with zero formal training, no experience, and no credible credentials simply spotted a mistake that our entire team of PhDs failed to detect. Victoria drummed her manicured nails on the table. Obviously, she had some privileged access to the code beforehand, probably through her mother, who has unrestricted access to the building after hours. Robert Hayes, who had witnessed the fateful meeting, nodded emphatically. Exactly what I've been thinking. There's no way someone from her background could possess that level of technical skill. It must have been sheer luck or insider information. What they didn't realize was that Kesha Washington was far more than just a cleaning lady's daughter at 16. She'd been offered a full scholarship to MIT's computer science program, but had to decline when her mother, Dolores, was diagnosed with cancer. Overwhelmed by medical expenses and the need to care for her mother, Kesha had put her academic dreams on hold indefinitely. For the past 6 years, while juggling part-time jobs to support her family, Kesha had continued teaching herself programming. In the quiet hours after her mother fell asleep, she devoured online courses, engaged in programming forums under anonymous handles, and solved complex coding challenges on platforms like GitHub and Stack Overflow. Her online alter ego, QuashDev, had earned respect among developers worldwide, but no one at Technova knew anything about her hidden identity. 3 days after the incident, Kesha was summoned to Victoria's office. The space was designed to intimidate, boasting sweeping views of the city and furnishings worth more than most people earned in an entire year. Kesha, please, have a seat, Victoria said, her smile artificial and stiff. We need to clarify a few details about what happened during that meeting. I understand you were eager to help, she continued, but we cannot allow unauthorized employees access to confidential corporate data. Remaining composed, Kesha folded her hands in her lap. I didn't access any confidential data, Sterling. I simply watched the code that was displayed on the screen during the meeting, so you're claiming you were able to detect a complex flaw in a billion-dollar system just by glancing at it. Victoria's voice oozed sarcasm. Fascinating. And where exactly did you acquire such astonishing expertise? Through studying, Kesha answered simply. Victoria let out a high-pitched grating laugh. Studying where, exactly?
You
Hold some degree we're unaware of? Or maybe professional programming experience you've conveniently forgotten to disclose? Kesha felt a familiar surge of humiliation in her chest, though her expression remained steady. It was the same sting she'd felt at 16, when a guidance counselor at her private high school suggested she should consider more practical career paths once learning about her family's circumstances. I don't hold a college degree, Kesha said evenly, but that doesn't make my observations invalid. Victoria leaned forward, her eyes glinting with cruel calculation. Kesha, let's be absolutely clear. This company invests millions to recruit the world's best talent. We don't need guesses from people who lack the background to grasp the complexities of our systems. Robert Hayes, who had been silent until then, chimed in. What Victoria means is that, while we appreciate your enthusiasm, there's a reason we have a hierarchy. People like you just don't have the training necessary to contribute technically. People like me, Kesha repeated, her voice calm but something unspoken shimmering in her eyes. Well, Robert stammered, realizing too late the trap he'd stepped into. People without formal technical credentials, obviously. Kesha nodded slowly, as if absorbing every word, while internally filing it away for future use. She had spent years enduring both subtle and overt prejudice, and had become skilled at recognizing when she was being underestimated. More importantly, how to turn that underestimation into an advantage. I completely understand, Kesha replied, standing up from her chair. Thank you for clarifying the company's perspective. As she reached the doorway, Victoria couldn't resist a parting shot. Oh, and Kesha, it would be best if you didn't discuss this incident with anyone else. We don't want people getting unrealistic ideas about future opportunities. Kesha paused at the door, turned back, and offered a faint smile. It was small, barely noticeable, but there was something in it that made Victoria feel inexplicably uneasy. Of course, Miss Sterling. I understand that some people prefer to keep certain things private. After Kesha left, Victoria and Robert exchanged self-satisfied looks, convinced they'd put the girl firmly in her place. What they failed to realize was that they'd just made a critical error. They'd underestimated someone who'd spent years being underestimated and who had developed extremely precise strategies for dealing with that kind of arrogance. That night, while helping her mother with her medication, Kesha quietly reflected on the conversation. Dolores, seeing the pensive look on her daughter's face, clasped her hand. "Is something wrong at work, honey?" Kesha responded with a gentle smile, pressing a kiss to her mother's forehead. "Nothing I can't handle, Mom." Some folks still have to learn that brains aren't limited to degrees, and that dismissing someone can end up costing them dearly. Once Dolores drifted off to sleep, Kesha opened her personal laptop and typed in a login that Victoria and Robert would never guess: Quashdev. Her GitHub profile displayed contributions to some of the world's most prominent open-source projects, including systems used within Teknova itself. On programming forums, her pseudonym was attached to years' worth of graceful solutions for intricate technical challenges. Yet that was merely the surface. Over years of silently studying the company's operations through her mother's employment, Kesha had built an extensive insight into not just Teknova's technical architecture, but also its internal politics and organizational weaknesses. Every humiliation from Victoria, each patronizing word from Robert, and every contemptuous glance from other executives was meticulously noted, not out of mere spite, but because Kesha had learned early that knowledge equates to power and patience. Serves as a strategy, as she coded with precise keystrokes. Her eyes glimmered with a steely resolve that her colleagues at the executive level could never imagine she possessed. They believed they knew Kesha Washington, the supposedly fortunate daughter of a cleaning lady. What they didn't realize was that some people don't simply endure prejudice. They grow stronger and far more formidable with each attempt to belittle them. In the fortnight following her eye-opening talk with Victoria Sterling, Kesha's daily routine at Teknova became a painstaking practice in surveillance and record-keeping. Every snide remark, every subtle slight, every derisive look was filed away in her mind. But Victoria and Robert had committed a grave error, assuming that shaming someone who had already weathered a decade of entrenched bias would silence her. One drizzly Tuesday morning, while sorting technical documents in Victoria's office, Kesha stumbled upon something unexpected. A folder had been left open, revealing emails between Victoria and the consulting firm Hartwell & Associates, which detailed a human resources optimization plan, a corporate euphemism for mass layoffs in the technology division. The timing was telling. Not long after Kesha had salvaged the billion-dollar system, Victoria intended to slash costs by terminating the very engineers who'd failed to resolve the crisis. Even more astonishing was the discovery that Victoria was earning a hefty commission for each layoff, proved a clear conflict of interest violating the company's code of ethics. Kesha covertly snapped photos of the documents using her phone, skill honed over years spent helping her mother document labor violations at past jobs. 2 days afterward, during a lunch break, Kesha received a message that would append everything. On her GitHub account, where she operated under the alias Quashdev, a new connection request appeared from a user named Teknova Insider. The message read, "I know who you are outside of the internet, and I know they're making a colossal mistake underestimating you. Can we talk?" Initially wary, Kesha nearly dismissed the message, but something about its concise, technical tone made her pause. After a cautious series of exchanges, she learned she was conversing with Dr. Alex Chen, the son of Teknova's senior developer David Chun, the same person who'd confirmed her solution during the incident. Alex, a senior software engineer based remotely in Teknova's Portland office, admitted during a secure chat, "I've followed your work online for 2 years. Your solutions for distributed systems are among the most brilliant I've ever encountered. When my dad told me what happened at that meeting, I immediately knew Quashdev and Kesha Washington were one and the same." Then Alex shared news that made Kesha's pulse race with anger. Victoria had claimed credit publicly for identifying the bug that saved the company's system, asserting in executive circles that she had mentored a junior employee to locate the problem. The official narrative documented in company files stated, that Victoria Sterling had personally spearheaded the crisis resolution. She's planning to leverage that story to secure a promotion to Global Vice President of Technology, Alex went on. The final presentation's in 3 weeks, and she's centering her promotion pitch around her so-called solution. At that instant, Kesha grasped that she wasn't merely confronting individual bigotry. She was staring down an entire apparatus built to extract value from people like her while ensuring they remained unseen. Victoria hadn't only usurped Kesha's recognition, she was crafting an entire career atop that theft. Yet Alex had more damning details. There were whispers that Victoria was manipulating the company's performance evaluation algorithms to rationalize the layoffs. If I'm correct, Alex said, she's breaking at least 6 federal laws governing fair labor practices. Kesha fell silent for a beat, absorbing the enormity of the revelation. Then, for the first time in weeks, a smile curved her lips. It wasn't a resigned or polite smile. It was predatory and deliberate. Alex, she typed, "Do you have access to the performance review system logs?" "Not personally," he replied, "but I know someone who might." "Why?" "Because we're going to need them for what I'm planning." In the days that followed, Kesha operated on 2 parallel fronts. Outwardly, she maintained the facade of the modest, grateful daughter of a cleaning woman, offering Victoria polite smiles and calmly accepting exclusion from technical meetings. Privately, however, she and Alex were assembling a case file that would make the Watergate scandal look amateur. Alex introduced her to Dr. Priya, a forensic data expert working remotely for Technova from Boston. Outraged upon hearing the details, Priya exclaimed during an encrypted video chat, "You mean they stole your solution and are now using it to justify mass layoffs?" "That's vile. I've got access to all the metadata in the system," Priya assured. "I can pinpoint exactly who modified every single line of code and when." The 3 of them launched into meticulous work. Alex provided internal access. Priya sifted through technical records. And Kesha orchestrated their entire mission while still performing her day-to-day duties. What they unearthed was even more shocking than they'd imagined. Victoria hadn't just appropriated Kesha's work. She had systematically been crediting herself with innovations from various junior developers for the past 2 years. Over a dozen critical technical breakthroughs were attributed to Victoria Sterling, though. In truth, she could barely distinguish HTML from CSS, even more egregious. The performance evaluation algorithms had been deliberately tweaked to diminish the scores of Black and Latino employees while boosting those of white executives like Victoria. The proof was undeniable. Statistical correlations, digital logs, and even audio recordings of meetings where Victoria explicitly discussed managing diversity without compromising standards. Robert Hayes was deeply complicit as well. As CFO, he had authorized several bonuses for Victoria based on achievements she'd stolen while simultaneously reducing training budgets for minority staff. They built an entire scheme, Priya concluded after poring over terabytes of data. Systematic intellectual theft disguised as meritocracy. As Victoria's presentation day neared, Kesha put the finishing touches on her evidence. She had amassed everything. Screenshots of code with precise timestamps, recordings of prejudicial conversations, analytical data proving algorithmic bias, documents showing Victoria's breaches of federal civil rights laws. Alex secured an even more critical piece, the agenda for the executive presentation where Victoria was set to receive her promotion. "It's a video conference with every global VP," Alex informed her. "More than 2,000 people will be watching it live." "Perfect," Kesha replied, her fingers moving rapidly across her keyboard as she completed her preparations. 2,000 witnesses will be more than enough. Later that evening, while assisting her mother with physical therapy, Dolores sensed something different about her daughter. "You seem changed, honey. More confident." Kesha smiled, placing a gentle kiss on her mother's forehead. "Just remembering something you always taught me. Mom, that dignity isn't something others can take. It's a choice you make to hold on to it, no matter what they throw at you." "And what are you planning to do with that dignity?" Dolores asked. knowing her daughter well enough to realize something significant was underway. "I'm going to remind a few people," Kesha said, her eyes blazing with determination her mother hadn't seen in years. That underestimating someone can be the costliest mistake of their lives. As Kesha finalized the last elements of her plan, she recognized that Victoria and Robert had inadvertently given her the perfect advantage. Time to prepare. Abundant evidence to gather, and a public stage where the entire company would see her. Response. They had pegged her as a timid girl who'd quietly accept humiliation. What they hadn't understood was that some people don't merely survive discrimination. They scrutinize every tactic, every maneuver, every weakness in their oppressors until they're armed for a battle the other side doesn't even know is coming. The more arrogant those oppressors become, the more clues they leave behind, constructing the very instruments of their own professional downfall. On the morning of the presentation that promised to change everything, she rose at 5 a.m. not out of anxiety but out of sheer readiness. After years of being underestimated, she was finally prepared to reveal the true cost of institutional arrogance. The massive auditorium at Technova was overflowing with people. Executives from around the world joined remotely via video links, while 2,000 employees sat in person, witnessing a presentation that promised to shape the company's future. Striding across the stage, Victoria Sterling radiated the poise of someone anticipating the biggest promotion of her life. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, her voice resonating through the speakers, "today, I'm here to reveal how our strategic leadership salvaged a billion-dollar investment teetering on the brink of collapse." Seated in the back, Kesha watched quietly, her laptop connected to Technova's internal systems using credentials supplied by Alex. Beside her, her mother, Dolores, had requested special leave to witness something important my daughter has prepared. Held Kesha's hand with pride. The problem was incredibly complex. Victoria continued as she advanced to the next slide. "Our top engineers worked relentlessly, but it was my knowledge of systems architecture that uncovered the critical fault." From the front row, CEO James Mitchell nodded with approval, while board members from across the globe appeared on screens, visibly impressed by Victoria's account. Then the lights dimmed unexpectedly, and a new voice sliced through the silence, steady, clear, and brimming with quiet certainty. "Excuse me, Miss Sterling," said Kesha, rising from her seat. "There are some crucial details in that story you've left out." Victoria froze mid-speech, her microphone still live, broadcasting. The sound of her rapid breathing. "You're not supposed to be here. This is an executive presentation," Victoria stammered. "You're right," Kesha responded, slowly walking down the center aisle. "But as the real creator of the solution you're claiming as your own, I believe it's my right to set the record straight." A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. Mitchell's brow furrowed, confusion evident. "What's she talking about, Victoria?" he asked, reaching the stage. Kesha didn't seek permission. She connected her laptop to the projector. "My name is Kesha Washington, known online as Quashdove," she declared. "And I can prove that every line of code Miss Sterling is presenting as hers was actually written by me." On the enormous screen behind Victoria, Kesha's GitHub profile appeared, showcasing thousands of contributions and an impeccable reputation within the global developer community. Gasps echoed through the room. "That's impossible," Victoria blurted out, her complexion turning ashen. She doesn't even have the qualifications." "You're right about one thing," Kesha interjected, her voice edged with the dignity of long-held restraint. "I don't have a college degree, but I do have something you clearly lack: integrity." Kesha clicked forward to the next slide, revealing timestamps showing precisely when each fix was applied to Technova's system, perfectly matching the commits on Quasdev's GitHub. "But stealing my work was only the beginning," Kesha continued, her presentation sharp and precise like a seasoned attorney's. "Dr. Pryor, our forensic analyst, discovered something far worse." Now the screen displayed devastating graphs, linking race to performance evaluations, alongside undeniable evidence of algorithmic bias and internal emails discussing how to handle diversity without lowering so-called standards. In the second row, Robert Hayes was visibly sweating. That's completely out of context," he protested. "Is it?" Kesha asked coolly, before clicking to play a crystal-clear audio file. Victoria's voice filled the auditorium. "We need to be strategic about this, Robert. We can't outright fire Black and Latino employees. But if the algorithms show they don't meet the standards," an oppressive hush fell over the audience. On the screens, global executives stared at each other in shock. Mitchell's face had gone pale. "This is a hoax," Victoria yelled, finally regaining her voice. "She's lying. She fabricated this evidence." "Oh, really?" Kesha replied calmly. "Then perhaps you can explain why you received $200,000. In commissions for every termination approved through Hartwell and Associates, a firm conveniently owned by your brother-in-law." The screen now revealed documents, bank records, and a tangled web of corruption stretching back to years Victoria Sterling hadn't only stolen credit for someone else's work. She had also profited from systematic discrimination. "Ladies and gentlemen," Kesha said, speaking directly to the cameras for 2 years. "This company has been plagued by a cancer, not just intellectual theft, but institutionalized bias, masquerading as meritocracy." Alex Chen, joining via video from Portland, appeared on a split screen. "I can confirm every piece of this evidence," he said. "As a senior engineer with access to the systems, I personally witnessed the data. Manipulation." Victoria scanned the room desperately. Mitchell, the board members, anyone who might stand by her, but all she saw were expressions of shock and revulsion. Her 15-year career was collapsing in real time, broadcast live to thousands. "James," she pleaded, calling the CEO by his first name for the first time in years. "You know me? We've worked together for—" "I thought I did." Mitchell cut her off, his tone like ice. "But the person I knew wouldn't steal credit from. A brilliant young woman, and then try to ruin her career." Kesha stepped closer to the microphone one final time. "I didn't do this for revenge. I did it because I believe companies like Technova can become better. Places where talent is recognized no matter someone's last name, diploma, or skin color." The crowd burst into applause, while Victoria remained frozen on stage, her hands trembling uncontrollably. In just 15 minutes, she had lost her career, her reputation, and any prospect of working in Silicon Valley again. Security was already escorting Robert Hayes out, his phone buzzing, endlessly likely lawyers scrambling for damage control. Meanwhile, Kesha descended the stage as calmly as she had entered. Her mother was waiting, eyes brimming with proud tears. For the first time in years, Kesha felt as though the world finally saw who she truly was. Yet one question lingered, in a company long built on privilege and prejudice. Was genuine change really possible? And how would Kesha transform her stunning victory into reforms lasting far beyond this moment of public reckoning? 6 months after the explosive presentation that toppled to careers and rewrote Technova's trajectory, Kesha Washington now sat in her new office as Director of Innovation and Technology Ethics. The sweeping skyline view, once a distant dream, had become part of her daily life. Victoria Sterling, on the other hand, learned that a tarnished reputation in the tech world spreads like wildfire, fast and nearly impossible to scrub away. Investigations confirmed civil rights violations, leaving her facing not just the end of her career, but potential criminal charges. Her last attempt to secure a job was rejected by a startup, ironically powered by open-source software created by Kesha herself. Robert Hayes' downfall was even more poetic. His illegal kickbacks led to fines that wiped out his savings and cost him his Malibu house. He now worked quietly as an accountant in a small firm, his grand ambitions reduced to balancing modest business ledgers. James Mitchell emerged as a profoundly changed leader. "Kesha taught me that genuine talent doesn't require pedigree, just opportunity," he declared at a conference on ethical leadership. Technova's transformation was sweeping. But under Kesha's oversight, the company's new evaluation algorithm eliminated systemic bias, and productivity soared by 40%. Proving diversity wasn't merely the right thing, morally it was a savvy business move. Dolores Washington, now benefiting from the best medical care, watched her daughter's achievements. "With profound pride, I always knew she was special," she said. but seeing her turn injustice into a force for helping others makes me even prouder. During a talk at MIT University that once felt out of reach, Kesho was asked how she had remained so composed while facing public humiliation. "Because I learned that anger only destroys the person who carries it," Kesha replied, smiling. "Intelligence, patience, and preparation are far more powerful fuels for real change." She went on to found Code for All, a program offering scholarships and mentorship to young people from underrepresented communities. Hundreds of graduates from the initiative now work at top Silicon Valley firms. "The best revenge," Kesha often said, "isn't tearing down those who wronged you. It's building something so extraordinary that the limits they tried to impose on you no longer matter." Meanwhile, Victoria watched news reports of Kesha's growing global success. From her rented apartment, slowly realizing the full weight of her own arrogance. She had gravely underestimated a powerhouse, disguised as humility. Kesha's journey proved that some people don't merely survive discrimination, they transform it into the fuel that drives achievements capable of redefining what's possible. As Victoria grappled with the consequences of her actions, Kesha was busy forging pathways toward a future where talent was recognized regardless of background. The cleaning lady's daughter had become the architect of a new era in technology, proving the true revolution happens when intelligence meets opportunity, and that underestimating someone can be the costliest mistake of all. If this story of overcoming obstacles inspired you, consider subscribing to the channel to hear more stories.